Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers. I am your host, Dorothy Odell, for this evening, and tonight's sponsors are is The Secrets of Death book by Dr. Joseph Dottore. This book is filled with rich and detailed information on this gripping military factual thriller that shows the depths of darkness acquired after years and decades of service. Get your copy today on either Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And for the second sponsor, I have to bring up somebody. Normally, we don't do live sponsorships, but this lady's pretty amazing. And Janet, welcome.
Thank you, Dorothea.
So the other sponsor of the show is still Camaraderie Rescue Mission, and for those of you that have not been around, I mean, you must have been under a rock, because for the last weekend we did a 24-hour live fundraiser for Camaraderie Rescue Mission, and Janet is a huge ally of Camaraderie Rescue Mission, and she just put out another incentive so that we could get more donations. So Janet, would you please share with us, with our viewers, what it is that you're so graciously willing to contribute?
Yeah, so what I've put out there for anyone who donates $300, by the end of the month, I have 5 spots open for coaching, and it's a 3-month coaching program, twice a month. And it'll take you from maybe you're stuck. Give you an example. When I finished my treatment with the psychologist for PTSD, she says, "You don't have to work with me anymore." And I said, "Now what?" Because we just got rid of a whole bunch of stuff that was stopping me from doing things, but I had nowhere else to go. So this is my path now. So if you're stuck somewhere in your life or you have a challenge, that's what we'll do in those 3 months, is we'll get through it.
Thank you so much, Janet. We so appreciate you. And if for any of your coaching needs, definitely get a hold of Janet, because this lady is amazing. She did an entire, which I will be reposting tonight or tomorrow, an entire speech for the United Nations as well. So definitely a lady that you want to get to know. If you don't know her, go stalk her over on LinkedIn. She's really amazing. And that's Janet Wiswaty, and that's Wiszowaty is how you spell her last name. So definitely get in contact with Janet, and definitely look her up and check out what she's up to, because she's always up to something.
Always, anywhere in the world.
So in the comments, I just put to make your donation, your $300 donation, you get that 3-month one-on-one coaching from Janet. For the first 5 people that donate $300, go to tinyurl.com/hope4vets to make your donation today. And Janet, we just so greatly appreciate you. Janet is always helping our veterans out, and she's also a first responder veteran as well. So Janet knows what it's like to definitely need the services that Camaraderie Rescue Mission has for our veterans and our first responders. So thank you so much, Janet. We truly appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
All right. Thank you. All right. So now we're going to get to the main host, or the main guest this evening. And Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dorothy, how are you?
I am amazing. It's just been one of those days, and it's been amazing.
Cool. Good.
So, Dan, tell the world a little bit about who you are.
Oh, boy. Okay, how much time do we have?
Well,
where do I start?
We've got 40 minutes.
Okay, so let me just start that. I was born into a very rough home in a very rough neighborhood, went to a rough school. A lot of things didn't go well. My dad had some mental health issues, and he self-medicated heavily with alcohol. And the old saying from people, the old Marine, hard drinking, hard hitting Marine. That was definitely my father. And, me and my brother and my mom, actually I had two brothers and my four sisters, we grew up in the north end of Hartford. We were the only white family living there in the north end of Hartford, in our neighborhood. And we got in a lot of fights and stuff like that. And we eventually moved down to East Hartford. And I found sports, just like the super, super quick version is, I was an undereducated, undersized boy, had so many things wrong with me, so many things going against me. But like I found sports, and sports kind of made a difference in my life. It gave me like a goal, I guess, toward work to something, football, wrestling were the big ones. But I did the other ones, basketball, baseball, some of the track stuff. But football and wrestling were the big ones that really gave me confidence and gave me a goal to work toward, and to build some self-esteem and to build some muscle and some strength and to learn how to fight, which, me and my brother, we had to learn how to fight. What I'm saying? Like we were in a very dangerous situation inside our own home, and outside our own home. And we had to learn how to fight fast and try to save ourselves and save our family and save whoever we could save. And I mean, to this day, I still fight for the underdog, all the time. But sports, I think, saved me, and made a huge difference in my life. Went on to be football state champs. I was a 2-time state champ wrestler, 2-time Junior Olympian, and then came back as the coach, twice the coach of the Junior Olympics, double veteran of the Army and Air Force, and an inner city school teacher for the last 25 years, working in some of the toughest conditions out there with some of the toughest kids, some of the most vulnerable population, some of the most angry kids you can imagine that are out there. And I literally knew I had to know how to fight in the early years just to be a teacher, in my classroom, believe it or not, what I'm saying? But over the years, I've developed a lot of other skills and I've worked very, very well, with the students. I went off, for an undereducated kid that could only get C's, in school, I eventually went off to college and did well in college and completed 14 years of college and earned 7 degrees. I've written over 30 books. I speak on the stages all over the place. And, I got a pretty good life now. I got a beautiful wife that loves me, and I've got 5 precious children that are all doing something I didn't do well in school. What I'm saying? Doing well in school, and they don't go out fighting, on the streets like I did. My kids is just so different than I was growing up. But I'm so proud, Dorothy, that I've been able to create that family. I mean, I wasn't born into, that family. You might have said that I lost the birth lotto, me and my brother and sisters, actually both my brothers. You might have said that we lost, we didn't win there on the birth lotto, and I didn't get the family that I deserved, I would say. But over the years, by becoming, a better and better person, a higher and higher quality person, by becoming this, I was able to attract, a high quality wife, and we were able to create, the family that my wife and I both deserve. I have a great family, 5 young kids that are just amazing. A wife that's amazing. We live in a nice place. We do a lot of nice things. We help people. We give back all the time. And I'd say we're very, very fortunate. So where I am today is so different than where I was before. So I say to anybody out there, listen, if you didn't win the birth lotto, if a lot of things are going wrong, maybe you married the wrong person and that person just kind of ruined your life. I'd say it's not over. It's not over. Just get back in there, get back in the ring, fight for a better version of you. What I'm saying? Have that empathy, have that enthusiasm and energy, work for your future self, try to become the person that, that you want to attract, become that. And you can start over wherever you are, and you can build an amazing life. And maybe, at some point, get the family that you do deserve, get the life that you do deserve. So in a nutshell, Dorothy, that's it real quick in a nutshell, definitely expand upon that as we go back and forth on that. So thank you.
I love everything that you said. And no matter where you come from, you could always change that. I just before we got on, Dan had sent me a manuscript for a book that's coming out of his, and I told him I was in tears, and sometimes I had to quit reading it because it was just wow, how can you survive a childhood like you had with the abuse of abuse that you guys took from your father. I mean, that is just horrendous. But here you are today. And I love what you said, become the family that you want, and a lot of people that would have been that have been in your circumstances, they just like, well, forget it. If that's how I grew up, I'm not going to get any better. They end up in jail. They end up, on the streets, or they end up, killing somebody because they're just so full of rage because of what they have been through. But you took it the other way and you said, no, that's not how I'm going to do this. I want my life to change. And you become the person that you want to emulate. And I just love that you said that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's been tough, but it's doable. I mean, there's so many different directions I want to go right now. My brain is just firing all these different responses that I could do to you. I mean, my older brother's gone, my little brother's gone, my mom's gone. I'm still standing. It's amazing. I mean, I was just doing a case study, and I'm taking this special education leadership academy, and I was just doing this case study with the cohort that I'm in. And there's a thing called the ACE score, which is like your childhood trauma that you face. And it's like, it goes up to 10. But if you hit a 4, like, you're in serious trouble. Any kid that hits a 4 is in serious trouble. They're going to need like a mentor. They're going to need some counseling. They're going to need a support system. Otherwise, their life is just going to be very, very difficult. So we were doing this case study, and we were studying this kid who hit a 6, off the charts at a 6. And we had this renowned professor that was there at this conference, and he's going, there was almost no way that this kid wasn't going to murder somebody eventually. And he was high on drugs. He murdered his girlfriend and all that. And they're like, it was a huge breakdown from society. The system should have helped him. There was almost no way this kid wasn't going to kill somebody someday. And I said to the esteemed professor that was running the conference, I said, hey, I just want to tell you that I took that ACE score, that ACE test. And I was a 7.
Wow.
And he looked at me, he goes, statistically rare that is? He's like, that almost doesn't even exist, a 7. And I'm like, yeah, I took it, I was 7. And he's like, how'd you do it? Like that, because it blew his brilliant professor mind.
Right.
When he was sitting there saying that a kid with a 6, there's almost no way he wasn't going to murder somebody. You know what I'm saying? But that's not even. I had a wrestler years ago. I had this young wrestler. He had black fingernail polish all over his fingers. His dad was always on his case, giving him a hard time. Talented kid, tough kid, right? And I was his wrestling coach. And I'm like, Tony, what's going on, man? What's up with the black nail polish? And he goes, because I'm an angry black man. And I go, good, Tony, that's cool. We can work with that. And he looked at me like, what? I said, we can work with that. It's okay to be angry, Tony. And I knew his dad was riding him. I saw his dad, coming to the meets and all that. I knew his dad was riding him too. But I'm like, listen, Tony, I get you. I was angry. You know what I'm saying? But that anger, what you got to do is you got to funnel it, because that anger gives you energy. It gives you drive. It's like a hot, white, burning energy drive that if you funnel it, if you focus it, I said, you can go on to create an amazing version of yourself. You can use that energy that just almost never stops to go out and really do something special in this world, Tony. I'm like, you could do this. So you're an angry young black man? Good. I can work with that. So come on, let's get busy, right? Let's get going, right? So, I think that says it. I mean, a lot of people haven't been dealt a fair hand. A lot of people should be angry. You know what I'm saying? And to press those feelings down, may just ultimately give you like an ulcer, and give you social, psychological problems. You're angry? Good. Admit it, face it. Let's do something with it. You got a whole lot of energy right there that we can use you to do something good.
Absolutely. So you've been a school teacher for 25 years in an inner city school.
Yeah.
What have been some of the highlights, I guess you would call, in that 25-year career so far? Like,
oh, wow. I mean, there's ups and downs every day. There were days when I had my worst day and my best day in the same class. There were days when I had the kids calling me names, you know what I'm saying? And being really, really vulgar. There were days when the picture of my wife was missing, and some other kid, a couple of days later would bring it back to me, and it would be like bent in half, and I was just like, and there were other days when I had like great success stories. And when those kids came back, and they were just doing so well. And I was like, I really want to know, what is your secret to just doing so well? Because you so beat the odds, and quite a few of them said, Mister, I was just trying to be like you. And that, wow. You know what I'm saying? Holy cow. When a kid says, I was just trying to be like you. You know what I'm saying? And the kid turned it around. You know what I'm saying? Turned it around and went out and did something, and came back and let me know. So, those are some great moments. And I got to tell you, it's fun being a teacher. It's hard. It's very hard, right? But I
can't even imagine. What grade do you teach?
I've taught all grades, but right now I'm doing high school. So let me just give you a quick rundown. I taught adult ed, I taught special education and mainstream regular education at the elementary school level, the middle school level, and the high school level. I think my longest run in one job was when I had 10 years as the high school history teacher. And then I bounced around. I did adult ed, I did online, university professor stuff. I've taught all sorts of classes. I was an ESL teacher. I was a Spanish teacher. I was a history teacher. And you name all the things in social studies, geography, civics, U.S. history, world history. It just goes on and on. Psychology, philosophy. I did all that stuff. I taught middle school math, middle school English, middle school science. I co-taught. I've inclusion. I've done self-contained with the real trouble behavior kids, where I did all the academic subjects. So I've just done so much. And right now, I got a pretty cool job. Now, this is my 5th year, where they pulled me out of the high school and put me in the alternative high school, the behavior school, for the kids that are troubled. And they made me the special ed teacher that's over there. And then I've done that, I've done that too. All right. So they made me the special ed teacher who teaches all the social studies classes, because I'm dual certified. Like I said, I have 14 years of college and 7 degrees. So right. I teach the high school kids all the social studies class. I teach a life skills class, and I do all the special education stuff. The special ed meetings, the PPTs, the IEPs, and I could throw out a whole bunch of alphabet soup, right? So I do all that stuff. And I run after school clubs sometimes. I was the wrestling coach, the football coach, I've done so many things. And I got to tell you, Dorothy, I wouldn't be an author if it wasn't for my students. For about 10 years, my students said, Mister, you got to write a book so you could tell other kids the things you tell us. And for 10 years, I was like, no, I'm not that smart. Plus, I stink at writing. I'm terrible. I can't write my name barely, right? So I'm like, no. So after about 10 years of different kids saying it and it becoming more and more frequent, one day I was driving home and my buddy Dave called me from Florida, and he's like, hey, Dan, guess what? Now, this is a guy, everything he touches starts to go, right? Brilliant guy, all that. And then he goes, I'm going to write a book. I'm thinking, yes, of course. Guys like you write books, right? So I tell him, I'm like, Dave, you're not going to believe this, but just again today, my students told me that I should write a book. And he's like, Dan, you should. I was like, what'd you say? Dan, you should. And I'm like, really? That night I went home. And Dorothy, I set my alarm clock for 4 a.m. I'd been getting up at 5 to go to the gym, you know what I'm saying? But I set my alarm clock for 4 a.m. Got up and wrote for an hour before I went to the gym. And I did that for the next 365 days in a row without taking a single day off. Wow. And next thing, and I had a book in my hands. And I said, wow, it worked. It worked. Oh my gosh, it worked. And then I just went on and just did the second book and the third book and the fourth book. And now, I'm like, more than 30 books. And many of them have hit Amazon bestseller on multiple days. It kind of goes up and down all the time, your books do. Yeah. So I've done some pretty amazing things. And like I said, my kids, my students, are the ones that spurred me toward becoming an author. I would have never done it without them. So like you said, good days, bad days, good periods, bad periods, good times, bad times.
Mhm.
It's like every single day in public education in the inner city. It's like every single day. Amazing things happen and terrible things happen like every day. And you just hang in there. You just hang in there and you come back tomorrow, and you do it again.
And that would be challenging. Like I can't even imagine, because I mean, I had to homeschool for maybe 4 months when the pandemic first hit, and I was like in tears like most days. So I can't even imagine dealing with inner city children day in and day out. You must love what you're doing, because that's the only thing I can say that would keep you
Well,
going.
well, I tell you, Dorothy, I mean, like when I talk to my students, I'm like, listen, I'm not that far away from you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I grew up like you. You know what I'm saying? And most of them are like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. And I'm like, but I did. I grew up like you. And I can remember, I can remember the early days when a kid would come up to me and a kid would say, hey, mister, Frankie's got a shank. He's going to freaking cut you. You know what I'm saying? And I'm pulling Frankie out into the hallway. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
give me the shank. You know what I'm saying? And I'm standing just far enough back where I can dodge and move and come in and use my wrestling skills as a 2 times Junior Olympian. So I wasn't worried about him. I'm like, give me the shank. And he did. He gave it to me, but he was doing this. But he gave me a shank. You know what I'm saying? So I had multiple situations like that. It wasn't just one. It was several situations like that. You know what I'm saying? But, I mean, nobody got hurt. Everything was fine. And, we all came back the next day. You know what I'm saying? And here I am 2.5 decades later, still making life better for kids who, society hasn't given many good things to, and I'm the guy. I'm the guy that's in their classroom that's not afraid of them. I'm the guy that loves them and takes care of them, and I'm the guy that can relate to them. You know what I'm saying? And I just somehow, I somehow make it happen. One of them said to me the other, like last week or week before, they said, hey, mister, you know why we never give you any trouble in class? And I'm like, why? And they go, because you don't act like you're better than us. And I'm like, yeah, that's not my game. To me, everybody in my classroom is family. We're all family. We're all in this together. It's a tough world out there. And I know that firsthand. Dorothy, as you know, because you read my manuscript for my memoir. I mean, I know that firsthand, that how it's a tough world out there. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're in my circle, you're not my competitor. You're not my challenger. You're my family. If you're in my circle, and I got big arms for big circles. Saying I don't exclude people. Come on into my circle, right? I'm like, family.
Oh, we needed a teacher like you when I was going to school. I had I'm not going to say hard asses. I don't know what I had. It was a combination, and some of them. I had one in the college. Like here I am paying for my education, and I had one in college that basically had his girlfriend teach us computers. He was so close to retirement, he didn't care. She was teaching us computers, and he was just there for the paycheck. We knew that by the end of the year he was done. And when you're especially when you're paying for your education, that's a hard pill to swallow. But it's having somebody who cares. It's just like having a boss that doesn't care. They're just there to get in and get out. And, you can't have any leadership under that type of person. But Dane, like seriously, the way you're impacting and molding these children, and you're going to have more than one come up and say, because of you, I didn't give up, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, when I was at that conference this weekend, before the conference was over, I told you about that boy that had a 6 on the A score that murdered his girlfriend. One of the presenters came up to me about halfway through the conference this past weekend and said, hey, Daniel, if Nathaniel had you as his teacher, I think he would have had a chance if he had you as his teacher. I mean, because that's what kids need. Kids need one person in their life, what I'm saying, who can take them under their wing, show them a little empathy, what I'm saying, show like a little enthusiasm toward them, what I'm saying, help them figure out, who's your future self, who do you want to become? Because, this isn't it right here. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't be like 48 years old with like an 18-year-old mind or an 18-year-old way of thinking. You know what I'm saying? So think about, you're 28, you're 38, you're 48 yourself. Who do you want that person to be? So you can't stay here as like a 16-year-old or like a 14-year-old or whatever you are. So you're going to think about your future self. You're going to there's so many opportunities out there. If you just don't give in, don't give up, keep just chipping away, chipping away. If you get that one person in your life, I just gave a speech at one of the largest, maybe second largest high school in Connecticut. It was over 2,000 students last week. And the class president that introduced me, before she introduced me, she turned around and she said, "Hey, Mr. Blanchard, I just want to tell you that I am so impressed with you." And she's like, "The stuff you did." And I go, you know what? I just chipped away at it. I just chipped away at it. Now, I didn't do anything amazing. I just chipped away at it. I was never really smart, you know what I'm saying? I was never really talented. I just chipped away and chipped away and chipped away so slowly, just chipped away every single day. Set my alarm clock for 4 a.m. again the next day. And then again, and then again. And I just chipped away. And then I'm like, holy cow, I graduated college. You know what I'm saying? Holy cow, I got multiple degrees. And holy cow, I wrote a book. Holy cow, I got multiple books. Holy cow, I gave a speech. Wow, I've given a bunch of speeches now. Wow, keynote speeches, international. Speaking in India next Sunday. I'm going to be speaking in India. So wow, I'm doing that again. I did that back over the summer, spoke in India. So, and trust me, I am no more talented than anybody in your audience, Dorothy. I was undereducated, undersized, underdeveloped, undercared for. Gosh, there's so many things could have gone wrong in my life, and I just stepped away.
When you were younger, because when we're young, we really don't have a clue what's going on. But growing up in the abuse that you grew up in, what would you say was the one thing that kept getting you through each day to do that one step and do that one step?
This is going to sound crazy, Dorothy. People ask me this type of question: who was your mentor? Who got you through it? And all that. And it's just crazy. I don't know if I've met anybody who says what I say. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't smart. I was tiny. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I wasn't the, later on I would go on to break the Connecticut bench press record and all that. But back then I was just tiny and I didn't have anything going for me, and except for weekends. On weekends, I watched professional sports. Like I wanted to be like Dr. J. If he could fly through the air like that, Julius Erving from the Philadelphia 76ers, and dunk that basketball, and play like he did. It just gave me hope that I could do something. When I was watching the Notre Dame football on Saturdays and the team was winning, right? And they had those great players. I was just like, oh, I want to be like that. When Rocket would run back a kickoff, I'm like, I want to be like that. What I'm saying? So I watched all these plays, when I watched, I love the freaking San Francisco 49ers. So when Joe Montana threw another pass and Dwight Clark caught it in the back of the end zone, I was like, yeah, I want to be like that. I want to be somebody who does something special. You know what I'm saying? So as crazy as an answer, Dorothy, as that is, I mean, I didn't know where else to look. There was nobody else coming to help me anywhere. Only thing I could do was just watch my sports heroes on TV and be like, I want to be like that. You know what I'm saying? I want to be somebody who does something special. And that was like the driving force for me. And then later on, when me and my brother got like a weight set, the other driving force, which made a big, big difference, was that we were just little boys. I was like in fifth grade. My brother was in like seventh grade. Saying, and we hit those weights, which like an intensity unknown, because we had to, in our little teeny boy minds, we had to get strong enough to protect our family from our father. A full-grown man, a former Marine. And you get this little fifth grade boy and this little seventh grade boy, my big brother, like scared if we don't get strong enough, fast enough, that something really, really bad is going to happen to our family. Somebody's going to be killed. in our family if we don't do this. So we hit the weights. I was the only like 8th grade kid that weighed like 100 pounds that was bench pressing 200 pounds in 8th grade. It blew people's minds that I could bench press 200 pounds in 8th grade. You know what I'm saying? And then high school, boom, it just kept going on. And like I said, eventually break the record, the bench press record in Connecticut. You know, I was the Army push-up champ for 6 years in a row, undefeated. Me and my brother, we learned how to fight. We learned how to fight in the streets. We learned how to fight in the wrestling mat. And it was important that we learn how to fight and fight well, because we had a family to try to save from a very, very angry, abusive drunk who was, really suffering like from mental illness. It was scary. We had so much drive, in us, that now that I look back at it, I'm like, it shouldn't surprise me, that I broke the Connecticut bench press record, and that I was a 2 times, I made varsity as a freshman and placed in the States as a freshman, beating the seniors. I remember I wrestled the returning state champ, captain of Killingley. He was a senior, and I pinned him first period. I was a freshman, and people were like, whoa, how did that happen? It was this, but I had to do it. So I guess I look back now and I'm like, it isn't surprising that I was a 2-time state champ wrestler, 2-time Junior Olympian wrestler. And me and my brother pretty much never lost street fights. We never lost street fights. And at one point, Dorothy, as you know, because you read my manuscript, right? I mean, I was in 8th grade, and the fight went down, between my brother and my father, and my brother won. He won that fight. And then that was the end. That was the end of my father hurting us. And my brother stopped him. And that was the end. My father tried a couple more times, but my brother let him know. My brother freaking put him down on the ground again, let him know that you are no longer the guy around here that beats everybody up. Saying my brother beat me to it. He was a lot bigger than me and stronger than me and all that sort of stuff. Older than me. He beat me to it. I didn't get there. My brother got there for all of us. And then the violence stopped in my house.
Right.
So
and for people that haven't been able to read your manuscript yet, or your memoir, which is coming out soon, no one tried to stop him. No one saw the bruises on you guys at all. Like I remember in some of what I read, like they would have had to have seen it.
My mother put makeup on us every morning before we went to school. So me and my brother wore makeup to school, like a lot of mornings. We wore makeup, and it was in those days. The police showed up on my house 3 times a week, sometimes 3 times a night. And every single time, this is what they did. They walked in, looked around, said to my father, "What's going on here?" And he said, "Nothing. Everything's fine. Everything's under control." And my mom would be in the corner crying. My brother would be like in the corner crying. And the police officers would look around a little bit. And they'd say, "Sir, why does your wife have bruises on her?" And he would say, "She bruises easily." And then the cops would say, "So everything is okay, right?" And my father would say, "Yeah, everything's fine." And they'd say, "All right, well, good night, everybody." And the cops would leave. Now, as a little boy, when the cops show up at your house, you think they're going to arrest the bad guy and save you. Instead, all they did was say, "Good night." And they did that like 3 times a night. Some nights, 3 times a week was probably the average. But there were some nights they did that 3 times a night where they were like, "Take care." And then as soon as they were down the road, my father would freaking go nuts again.
Wow. And so I'm sure that would have changed your perception of what a police officer would be like for you guys then. They
didn't help us. Yeah. Now today, I know, there's all sorts of laws that any kind of call, any kind of domestic disturbance or whatever dispute, somebody gets arrested. And I honestly believe that pendulum has swung too far, saying that, I don't think somebody needs to be arrested every time there's a domestic disturbance, what I'm saying? But, I think there should be some kind of judgment calls, but the judgment calls in the 1970s were like terrible. It was just like a husband had a license to beat his wife. Mm-hmm. And had a license to beat the kids back in those days. It was hot.
And now, please correct me if I'm wrong, or even if you wanted to answer this question, but isn't that how your mom passed away too? Was from the abuse eventually?
Yeah, the doctors, she passed away at 60, which was way too young. And I always say that she passed away from a life that was too hard. Officially, the doctors said that she had some kind of internal bleeding. They couldn't find the cause of it, and she used to have to go and get blood transfusions or blood pumped into her body every few weeks. And then eventually she just passed away from that. But I always say, here's a woman, 7 kids, working the graveyard shift as a nighttime supervisor at the convalescent home as an RN nurse, and barely sleeping during the day because she's running 7 kids around. My father didn't run us around, not really. I mean, maybe once in a while, but not really. You know what I'm saying? So my mom ran us all around. She paid all the bills. And then my father would beat her when he came home drunk. He'd beat her for like a coat hanger being on the door, or something insignificant. He would beat her many times. His manhood was challenged. He wasn't paying the bills, but at the same time, his manhood was challenged when she was paying the bills. Many times he'd grab her keys and try to hide her keys, make her late for work, smack her around when she was walking out the door, saying, don't you go to work or something like that. And it was just like, how are we going to eat if my mom didn't go and work the graveyard shift? She's the one that pretty much paid the bills.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it was just such a lose-lose situation. So I would say between working the graveyard shift, like almost never sleeping, and having that insurmountable stress, I say that she died from a hard life that she shouldn't have had.
Right.
She shouldn't have had that life. And I remember telling her too, like me and my sisters, my brother, we sometimes she'd come home from work, and and you don't know this story, Dorothy. It wasn't in the book. She would come home from work sometimes. Chris would be like bruised or whatever. Maybe I'd be bruised, and all of us, she'd have her nursing uniform on. All of us would meet her. As soon as she came in the house, we'd all meet her. We have our piggy banks. We might have like 87 cents and change, in our piggy banks. And we would say, here's your piggy banks, Mom. Let's run away. Let's run away. And my mom would always go, no, you don't run away from your problems. That's not what you do. You don't get a divorce. You don't break up the family. You know what I'm saying? You don't run away. The family stays together. And I was just like, wow, and we were all like, I don't understand. I guess marriage is just so sacred, that it was just so sacred to her, but we were just like, we were fine. She was like, where are we going to sleep? I'm like, I don't give a crap if we sleep on grandma's basement floor. You know what I'm saying? We'll do that. But she was, no, she goes, you don't get a divorce. When you get married, you stay married. And it was just like, whoa. As kids, we didn't get it, but I guess it was important to my mom, for the marriage to stay and the family to stay and for her not to break up the family. It was really, really important to her. God bless her. God bless her. But she dealt with too much.
Right.
Dealt with too much. And we all did. And, and here's the thing. It's been said by some of the great thinkers of the world, that, when these things happen to you, there's 2 paths you can choose, and one is you can like turn inward and you can become negative and you can become like self-defeating and you could take on self-injuring behaviors, whether it's drinking too much, whether it's cutting yourself, whether it's eating too much, whether it's fighting all the time. You could do those things. Or you could take the other path, where just you see it as a challenge somehow. Like your inner strength activates and it becomes like a challenge for you to go out and for you to become stronger. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's like what happened to me. With my brother, it was the opposite. You know what I'm saying? He was always angry, always fighting. Like he didn't funnel his anger like I did, as well as I did into like the sports and into like trying to become successful. Instead, he just kept fighting and fighting and fighting, always, fighting the police, fighting authority figures, in and out of jail all the time. And me and my brother, we grew up in the same home, 2 brothers from the same home, and that's how it worked.
Well, and that is so true because I look at my brother and I, we're same home, we're completely different. completely night and day difference. Same parents, grew up with the same morals, same values, and you could still have the two different people turn out two different ways, but thank God for sports for you, and a lot of women can't stand sports, and in our household it's either hockey or football on, I will admit, and my husband's blessed because I allow it. I'm like, there's worse things he could be watching. And sports is very if you look at the great players and you see what they've gone through to get to where they're at today to become great, like you said, getting up at 4:00 in the morning, doing what you need to do to get your books done, then doing you're working out at the gym at 5, and then going and pouring your heart and your soul into these children so that they can have a better life. I mean, it's all about choice, and it's about, what do you want? Do you want to be just like some of us had great childhood and some of us didn't? So are you going to let that define you, or are you going to let that move you forward to your goals, I guess is what I.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to Tony, doesn't it, Dorothy? Where Tony said, I'm an angry young black man. And I'm like, good, we can work with that. We can work with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to go do bad things. Yeah. We could do good things with that. If you just let me help you, we could do good things with that. And going back to what I was saying before, there's that one person again. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if it's the wrestling coach, if it's the school teacher, is it the crossing guard, is it the cafeteria lady, is it your mother's best friend, the neighbor? It doesn't really matter who it is. You know what I'm saying? If every adult just kind of looked around for one kid to try to make a connection with, wow, we could we could do some pretty good things for the next generation. All adults did that. I mean, I named my book series Granddaddy's Secrets on purpose, because the way I saw it, there was two things going on here. One is today's parents are just overwhelmed. Many of them working 2 jobs just to try to put food on the table. So what happens is the parents are not there for the kids physically as much as they should be. And then when they get home, they're tired. So they're not there mentally and emotionally and psychologically as they should be. But guess what? Those forgotten grandparents, they're retired. They're not killing themselves at work. So bring them in the picture. Let the grandparents connect with the kids. You know what I'm saying? And there's something magical there. So Granddaddy's Secrets. And then the kids, listen, you're not so wise. Just listen. They're not just old people. Listen to them. You know what I'm saying? And then I say to the grandparents, I'm like, they may act like they don't want to listen to you, but trust me, they need you. They need you, and you could play a major role in this. Now, if you're a parent that's not overwhelmed, that's not working 2 jobs, you know what I'm saying? Just to put food on the table, and you are available physically and psychologically available to your kid, then be available. You know what I'm saying? Be available to your kid. Be there and be present for your kid. You know what I'm saying? Because you could make a huge difference in your kid's life. And if not, then the grandparents hopefully can step in as substitutes and make a huge difference in the kids' lives. And that's why the whole Granddaddy's Secrets thing kind of works its way up and down, the Granddaddy's Secrets thing. And if we don't have that mix, I'm just saying, Granddaddy doesn't have a grandson around or a granddaughter around. What's the next door neighbor kid doing? Make a connection with that kid, or the kid that you always see down the end of the block, just sitting on his bike all alone, with nothing to do every day. You know what I'm saying? Go make a connection with that kid. So I think if all the adults tried to look around for a kid to make a connection with, we could do some good things. We could do a lot of good, if we all did that.
Absolutely. As you were talking, I'm like, who was my one person that I looked up to? But I guess, if it wasn't my grandfather, it was my dad. And eventually, once I realized my mom and I were too much alike, and we kind of butted heads with me growing up.
Oh, yeah.
So I was just like very frustrated a lot with her. But since I've come to understand and know her more and better and appreciate, being a stepmom myself, like what she's gone through, it's just like, and it's true. Like, we always had my grandparents, and they are important, played an important role in our lives. So absolutely. I love that you said that.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, Dorothy, when I was in 8th grade, one of my football coaches pulled me aside and said, and I didn't know what was about to happen. You know, he took a role in my life like the next decade. And he said, hey, what are you doing after football season's over in the winter? And I'm like, oh, I play basketball. And he's like, let me bring you to a wrestling tournament. And I was like, all right. He goes, come on, bring it to practice first. And I was like, all right. I go, can I do basketball and wrestling? And he's like, yeah, sure. You know, middle school you could, high school you couldn't. So he brought me down to a wrestling practice, showed me like 1 or 2 moves on a Tuesday night. Thursday night, same thing, showed me like 1 or 2 moves. I knew like 3 moves. He picked me up Saturday morning, brought me to a wrestling tournament. All right, 8th grade. I never wrestled before. He took me to a wrestling tournament. I took first place, right,
Wow.
in the wrestling tournament, right? So I come out my freshman year, I make the varsity team, you know, as a freshman, right? And then this guy, Mr. Knapp, Mr. Vinny Knapp, for like the next 10 years, he's picking me up and driving me all over to like elite wrestling practices, camps, national teams. I mean, I was in my early 20s, you know, and I was going to like a community college, and I'm like, listen, I'm done wrestling. You know what I'm saying? And I think I was coaching at this time. And he's like, no, get in the car. I'm taking you to the New York Athletic Club. And we would drive 2.5 hours to get to one of the most prestigious wrestling clubs in the world. And I would get there, and I'd wrestle with world champs, international gold medalists, Olympic champs, world game champs, Pan Am champs, you know, NCAA champs. And I was in that room brawling with these like people that you only hear about. You don't get to, you see these people on TV maybe in the Olympics, right? I'm wrestling like the world champ from China. I'm wrestling the world champ from Iran. I'm wrestling all in the New York Athletic. And then, you know, it's 10 o'clock at night, and Mr. Vinny Knapp is doing the 2.5-hour drive home to bring me home. And we're getting home like 12:30, 1 in the morning. He's got to work in the morning. You know what I'm saying? And he was,
so be that person to that child, because you never know what that's going to be. You never know how that's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes he was like yanking me off the streets. He's like, get in the car, we're going. You know, so like,
I love that. All right, we've got to transition into the next half of the show. I didn't want to cut you off, but we do have to get to the next part. So Kimberly, you're muted, dear.
Thank you. Thank you. I was saying, no, we didn't have to get to the next part of the show. We already were in the next part of the show.
We were in the next part. You were just inviting the rest of them to the party.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing us into the party. Seriously, I mean, my cup runneth over. We say that the show is run by the Holy Spirit, and we mean that it's run by the Holy Spirit. And Dan, you have no idea the difference you're making, most specifically for Dorothy and I. I mean, we are like trudging towards the finish line on some projects that have literally been sucking the life out of us. And we are hardwired like you, where, we're all about being a remarkable contribution. And you have been literally the holy waters of the Holy Spirit tonight, reminding me of, all the things I've gone through in my childhood. And I've always had that same spirit. And I know Dorothy, and I can't wait to introduce Kimmy. Kimmy has been one of those people for me that you're speaking of. And it's just, my cup just runneth over tonight, Dan. And your message is so true, for the kids, and really for the adult kids out there. The ones in their 80s, 70s, 60s, and 50s that are like just dead in the water and resigned, that kind of joyful living is available to each and every soul. And even if it's only for a day, that they get to live in the kind of joy that you've chose. And it is a choice, right? It is a choice to either go in the direction of joy, faith, trust, and confidence that everything that you went through was for a purpose. And even if it saves one soul and it brings one soul into the light of joy, it's worth it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it just breathtaking. Well, actually, breath giving is who you are.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And fundamentally, right? Fun. I don't know if you know this, Dan, but it is fun, capital F-U-N, little D-U-H, capital M-E-N-T-A-L-S, right? So as we move into the fundamentals, thank you for being the living, breathing existence of what it looks like to be fundamentally alive, regardless of circumstances.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are in Chicago, Illinois tonight with the beautiful Kimmy DeVork, who is a phenomenal, renowned artist. You can purchase her art online and she'll commission. You can also commission her, and she has even done a painting for Mr. Robert Redford. She is amazing. She is incredible. Kimmy, what would you like to share? And she's our sponsor tonight. So along with Janet.
Yeah, I'm going to give Janet some airways too. First of all, like Dan, just everything that Kimberly said, I just have to acknowledge you too. Anytime, if have energy running low, I'm just going to pop on Dan.
Right? Right? This show is set for finishing strong for 2022 and roaring into 2023. It's like, I'm just going to play it.
Roaring.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm Dan. Dan's me. Yeah.
It was all profound and beautiful, but the chipping away, because we get so resigned, as human beings, if we can't have what we want, like immediately, or think it's supposed to go a certain way and then it doesn't. But it's like, if you just keep that progress, that little bit of movement, you start gaining mastery, so yeah. So thank you for having that be alive for everybody here. Okay. And where am I supposed to start?
Anywhere you want, my love. Just share with them what you have to offer them, and what you have available for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love going on the hunt through antique markets, estate sales, traveling around in my big yellow Jeep when I'm in the country. When I'm out of the country, I love ducking into little places and seeing what kind of treasures I can find to rip apart and reappropriate and create a whole new, breathe new life into them, into jewelry. This is just a tiny little piece, but with a cameo that was part of a bracelet, like this little delicate cameo. It's so fun in big warehouses to find these little tiny treasures. So that's one thing that I love doing now. And that's a more recent discovery. It's probably something I've been into like my whole life, and other derivations of living, like with people bringing diverse things together and then just putting them all together and seeing what happens, right? It's like the experiment of it. But I also am, what I'm even better at, I would say, best at, is drawing. I also do large scale paintings. Like Kimberly said, I'll do commissions. My style, I would say, is expressionistic. There's a lot of animal and human form like woven together. And like every time you look at it, what people say when they purchase it, they're like, I always see something new. There's always something new speaking to me. So I will share with Dorothy. My Etsy store is just for my jewelry, but I'll send that in the chat, and you all can find me there and communicate with me there. Oh, cool. Instagram. Yeah, and if anybody wants to contact me directly, that's a jellyfish painting, and that morphed into skull jellies. I could go grab one of those while somebody else is sharing in a couple minutes, and you can see what that looks like too, because it's like the evolution of everything. That's got 1908 sheet music on there in the background, and then I layer it up with multiple gel mediums and things, and then shellac the whole thing, varnish it so it glows.
Love it.
So she bought a little tiny one. Thank you, Kimberly. That fit perfectly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So and I'll put this Etsy. So contact me through Etsy, Instagram. I'm working on my big, artist website to get that's all beautiful. So that's under construction right now, but you can find me. Do you all want my Like email or phone number too? Just Etsy, I think is fine, right?
Etsy what do you go by on Instagram?
Instagram is Scarab Sanctuary, and same on Etsy. So if you just, my hashtag is hashtag Scarab, like the sacred beetle.
Right.
Yeah, hashtag Scarab Sanctuary. And then I'll put my Etsy in the chat for you, Dorothy.
Perfect. That'd be great. And then I can just copy it over.
Yeah.
So these amazing people can go check you out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sure.
her jewelry is off the charts, and she'll create the jewelry whatever you want. Someone was looking for something with a badger on it. And
Mhm.
they were like, "Oh, if you can't find a badger, do a cat." She's like, "Oh no, we're going to find the badger." And in less than 2 weeks, she had made that happen. So she loves making each piece uniquely for each human being. So that's
Not settling for anything less. You want a badger for your wife back in Bulgaria? That's what we will give her.
Love it.
exactly. Yes, yes.
Love it.
So with that, thank you, Kimmy. Thank you for being our sponsor tonight.
Sure.
Janet, would you like to share a little bit more about your products and services? And again, we just thank you so much for your offering into the Unstoppable Camaraderie fundraiser work that we're doing. So thank you so much. Oh, is she muted?
Yeah, you're muted, Janet.
She just followed my lead.
That's right.
It's understandable.
Yeah. See the influence you have on me.
I know, I got it.
An hour together. And Dan, that was awesome. And it's so true that one person can change a life. And because if I had followed the route that everybody and my teachers thought, I certainly wouldn't have done the things I did. But one person told me I was smart enough to do more. And I failed reading in grade 5, and now I'm an author. So, teachers don't know everything, right?
Michael Jordan he didn't make the basketball team the first go around.
True. Yep.
Yeah. So that's my motto too, is that one person's life. If we can all change one person's life, we'll change the world. And that's what I want to do. With people have done it for me, and so that's how I want to show up for someone else. And that's why the coaching is so important, because we can't see what's in us, but somebody else can see what's in us. And if we're encouraged, and like I tell people, I'll hold that dream for you till you can hold it for yourself. Right? Because I know, like, if it wasn't for my friend to tell me that I was smart enough, and I had to believe her. She had a master's degree in education. I'm a high school dropout. She believed in me, right? So that's what I just want to say, Dan. You're doing a wonderful thing, and teachers make a huge difference, make or break a kid. And you can change a life. I trained with Jack Canfield. He used to be an inner city teacher in Chicago.
Oh, I remember.
And he's amazing. And so, and he is exactly what you see. There's no airs about him or anything, and he gives the best hugs. So that's a little bit about me, but I believe that we have so much more in us. I proved it. I certainly wouldn't be traveling the world like I have, or written that I have, or doing what I do, if it was not for somebody else's belief in me. And my husband, of course, is 100% behind me, which is good. 50 years, guys. 50 years married.
Oh, come on. What did you do? Get married when you were 10 or 5 or what?
So if I can do it, if I can climb a mountain every day on an archaeological dig at 50 with a bunch of 20-year-olds, so can you.
Amen. Preach it, sister. Preach it. And with that, Janet, what are your 3 fundamentals? I almost gave her 5. Did you see that?
Oh, I know.
Never done that before.
I can't remember exactly what your definition of it is, but I think my fundamentals are travel. Love traveling. And, you know, one thing I never thought I was, but I know I am now, is teacher.
Mm.
Say facilitator, whatever. I don't teach to somebody. I guide them through the journey, and that feeds my soul. And speaking, and Kimberly and I did that hour, and I could have kept on going, because I don't, you know, when I'm on a roll, I'm on a roll, and you can't stop me.
Yeah. Then we don't want to stop you. We don't want to stop you. Thank you so much. All right, Kimmy, what are your 3?
Oh, and this fits in perfectly with Dan couldn't have been a better,
Right?
you know, because I'd say on like a simple, like a human, like I'm taking care of myself so that I can go out and be big and bold and, you know, take care of the world, you know. Simple thing like fundamental is have some kind of a routine, like a morning routine. I have people trained around me. I just stayed with Kimberly. She knows, like, roll out of bed at her house and she's like, can I get you your tea? I spent the night with my boyfriend last night. He's like, can I get you your tea? It's just like the simplest little thing. I start with this morning thunder tea. You know, it's the logo. It's this charging buffalo, which is like my power animal. Whoa, where can I put him? Yeah, and that's so simple. And then the second thing is, have your routine, but don't be attached to your routine. You know, like if you're traveling abroad, which I just got back from Berlin and Prague, and I ran the Berlin Marathon. And if you don't have your tea with you or whatever it is that's your normal routine, it's like you gotta, so you don't make people around you miserable. It's like have a blast with what's available in front of you. So don't be too attached to your routine. And then the third thing is don't be attached to anything.
Mm.
Yeah, which, you know, can be easier said than done. But I think like Dan is such a perfect illustration of that, or somebody that like could have been attached to a whole hell of a lot in his life. He's like living life on his own terms now because he was so committed to other people and committed to having a great life, and like gave up what it looked like and not like being attached to any of it.
Beautiful.
And then last quick thing I do want to say, Kimberly, you don't even know about this, but blues legend and a very good friend of mine who was one of my first people that like welcomed me into Chicago and I hung out with all the time 20 years ago, Marty Salmon. He just died. He was only 45. We don't even know what it was yet, but he was the piano player for Buddy Guy, and he just passed away, and he was a very good friend of mine. So yeah, so, you know, not being attached to any of it, and like feeling sadness and, you know, love and appreciation for when, you know, somebody reaches that stature, right? And that level of like traveling the world and being seen and as artist and living his most passionate life. Like he lived fully. There's no doubt, man. So it's such an inspiration for all of us.
Well, such a great salute to him tonight. So I'm so glad we could do that tonight.
Yeah,
for you and for him.
Yeah.
Dan, with that, would you like to bring us home in the fundamentals?
Oh, yeah, so I'll just repeat what I said before. I think that the 3 fundamentals for me would be empathy. Empathy is the first one, no doubt about it. And not to be confused with sympathy, you know, where you feel sorry for someone. You know, I'm not saying that where you're feeling sorry. Empathy is like when you're trying to walk a mile in their shoes. You know what I'm saying? You're like, okay, I can feel what you feel. You know, I get it. You know what I'm saying? So the empathy is very important. I think we all have to be empathetic. You know, it's really the highest form of intelligence out there.
Amen.
You know, I know sometimes people have said to me, oh, I can't believe you just sat there and just listened to that guy say that and didn't say anything back. And I'm like, why? You know, why would I need to say anything back? I was just listening to that guy. You know, that's it. So definitely empathetic, the empathy. And I would say in life, you need, I'm going to kind of put these 2 together real quick. You need like the energy and the enthusiasm in life. You know, that's what makes life worth living. I think like fun, exciting is the energy, enthusiasm. And when you get that energy, enthusiasm, what happens is you kind of like fire yourself up and you have this energy you didn't even know you had. You know what I'm saying? You can just keep going and keep doing things that other people are like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, I just want to sit down and watch TV. You know what I'm saying? So the energy, enthusiasm really gets you going. You know, I always say, you know, emotion creates motion.
It does.
So if you're enthusiastic, that emotion will create motion. So if you're enthusiastic, your energy and you're moving, your emotion creates motion. You're going, your cool things are happening, right? And then I'd say the last one is future self.
Mm.
You're saying today, be kind to your future self. Because what is your future self going to need from, when I was little, my future self needed to be stronger. You know what I'm saying? Needed to be faster, needed to know how to fight better. Then my future self needed to be educated. So I took all the skills and all the drive I had in learning how to be strong and fight and finally put it into my education. Okay? And then my future self needed to learn how to be a husband, and how to be a father. Those are hard jobs, but very, very important jobs. And very rewarding. Like I said, with teaching, it's very hard, but it's very, very rewarding. And the same thing, being a father, being a husband, and so now I've been thinking about what does the future dad need? And that's not easy because none of us have a crystal ball, you know what I'm saying? But at some point, there's going to be other milestones in my life. Someday I'll be a granddad and stuff like that. Someday, I'll be tiptoeing on retirement and saying, okay, what do I do next? That's beneficial to the world, hopefully, saying, and of course to my family, saying, so going back, I would say again, saying the empathy, the enthusiasm and energy, saying, and your future self, saying, be kind to your future self and help your future self, set your future self up for success and happiness.
Well said. Well said. And as always, Dorothy, all the fundamentals complement each other so beautifully, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we've got the audience set up. So as always, our guests shine. They're just amazing. So back to you, Dorothy.
Well, thank you. And wow, I just have to say this has been an amazing episode. Went by very quickly because Dan was just your story, Dan, is so empowering. And we say here that we set yourself up to empower you for the week. So, and I just, as I'm sitting here, has to be Monday night, but I'm thinking it's Tuesday for some reason. I don't know what's going inside of my head right now, but it's just wow, and empowering this everybody, and thank you so much, Dan, for bringing that in, and thank you, Kimmy and Janet, for coming on and sharing your heart as well, and your generous spirit, both of you, or all three of you actually. So with that, I just want to say thank you to our guests in the comments, and thank you to Dan, Kimmy, and Janet for coming on and bringing your heart and soul. And don't forget, guys, all it takes is to be that one person to somebody that can make a difference in their life. If you didn't get anything out of tonight's episode, but that is just wow. That is the number one thing. So be who you want to be for that person. And show up for your future self. I love that. I love all of that. So thank you, Dan, for bringing that in. And be unstoppable in all that you do, guys. And we'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.